The thing pissed me off though. Hey guys, I'm here from PowerCoin Toy Collectibles, and today it's another story time. So I'm going to be talking about my story of Power Mrophicon and how I met JDF. So this is Power Mrophicon 2018, and this is a story of how I made JDF. It's a little cool story. So I'm gonna go ahead and dig right in. So I tried to record this before, but I kind of put two stories together, so I'm just gonna do that and then in unison. So this is Power Mrophicon 2018 Anaheim. The first time, I think it's gonna be the only time they moved it to Anaheim. And Thursday was the command center field trip, which is what I did. So I went there, whole dilemma there. That itself is actually another story time. But came back, wasn't able to get my badge. Friday morning, had to go get my badge. Big line. My wife, which was my girlfriend at the time, she took me, and I'm like, okay, let me go, because I sold the exclusives. Hey, I'm a seller. What do you want me to do? So I bought some exclusive, and then I was able to pick them up, and then she came, picked them up, and dropped them off. And then what happened is that Friday though, my wife bought some tickets for a concert, and I totally forgot about it. So I was like, hey, this Friday I'm going to Power Mrophicon, and she's like,
no, you're not. We have a concert Friday. I'm like,
what are you talking about? So she bought this concert like months ago, and I totally forgot about it. Then I said yes. Like it was my fault because I didn't check the date. And I'm like, okay, I need to do a few things at Power Mrophicon. Let me, pick up my exclusive, hang out there for an hour or two, and then we'll go to the concert. And she's like, okay,
that's totally fine.
And I'm glad she did that. Thank you. She let me do that. Because she wanted to spend the whole day, but I'm like, she knows like this is only every 2 years, so she was like, okay, like I understand. So I went. It took way longer than I wanted to, and I only had the lines to pick up stuff. And then actually, yeah, because I waited the exclusive line on Friday, and I was like, oh man, like, it was crazy. So I'm like, okay, let me just do this. So I actually didn't even end up doing anything the whole time there. I was just picking up my badge, picking up exclusive, and I think I did like a quick rundown of all the booths of stuff they were selling, and I think I only bought like a few things. I want to say, because the line was crazy. I don't remember if that was that right order, but that's what I did that Friday. And then when that was done, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go. So I went to the concert with my wife, and I don't even remember who we saw. But yeah, and then Saturday comes, and I'm like, okay, Saturday, if you don't know any convention, that's like the main event. That's like the main thing you want to go to is a Saturday, because people cosplay, special guests come, and for Power Mrophicon, Saturday was JDF. So I was like, okay, I want to meet JDF. Everybody wants to meet JDF, right? This is JDF. But I'm like, everyone wants to meet JDF. I want to meet him. I want to take a picture with him and an autograph. That'll be sweet. So I got Golden Ranger badge. So I'm able to go in a few minutes, and I'm like, okay, I had a game plan. I'm like, okay, Friday didn't go as I wanted to, because I wanted to meet some people, do other things. It didn't go as I wanted to, and my day got cut off short. So Saturday, I'm like, okay, I have a game plan. Saturday morning, go in early, run straight to JDF, get in line, wait in line, take pictures, and then do the other stuff. So I was like, cool, game plan, right? Go in Saturday morning, able to go in. There's this big line already. I was like, oh man, like I wasn't able to get there early, like I live close by, but I wasn't able to get early. I'm wondering if all those people were like people that stayed in the hotels and everything that literally woke up and like dragged themselves half asleep to go there. Like I wasn't able to do that. So I'm like, oh man, this big old line, and I'm like, yo, like I don't have time for this. What I meant by that is that I know that if you ever go to a convention, like you could kind of time like, okay, if I stand here and this person's this popular and they're gonna take about this long, like you can kind of see like how long the line's gonna take. That was gonna take a few hours. That was not gonna take a few minutes, a few hours. So I was like, oh man, like I can't do this. Well, the thing that I want to wait in line for was that I wanted to get to the Power Ranger booth, which was in the morning. Pretty much they had the old cast come out, so they're gonna have Ninja Steel come out and say a few things, and then they're gonna have the new Beast Morphers cast come out, and they're gonna introduce them and everything. And I was like, cool. Like I wanted to do that, but what happened is that you were supposed to, before the that thing, is get a badge. So you have to get a badge if you want to get in line to do the signing event of all the cast members for Ninja Steel. And on the thing it said like, oh, this time. So I was like, okay, where? So I'm like looking for it and nothing, trying to look on their Facebook page, website, nothing. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I asked the cast member, like, hey, like, what I mean by cast member is like people that are working for Scott in the convention. So I asked them, like, hey, where do I go for this thing? And they're like,
I don't know. Let me go ask.
and I'm like, okay. I never saw the person again. I followed them, and they kind of went behind a thing, and then they came back and started working on something else. And I'm like, they ignored my question. Asked someone else, again, same thing.
Oh, I don't know. And
Just kind of ignored me. And I'm like, okay. So I just kept asking random people, and they're like,
I don't know.
and then finally I asked someone, and they're like, yes.
I heard about that. We moved it up to this time. And
I was like, okay, thank you. And I was like, okay, they moved up for this time. And I'm like, it wasn't posted anywhere, but they moved it up. So I was like, okay. And then what happened is that they moved it up to the time where it's like you either had to go online to meet the cast, or you would go online to pretty much go into the Power Ranger booth. So I was like, oh man, like, what do I do? Do I go see the booth, you know, that where they're introducing a new cast, or get in line to get my autograph? So I'm like, well, I can always see that, you know, booth later online. So I'm like, I'm gonna get my signatures because I bought all my Ninja Steels. I, you know, bought them out throughout the year. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get them signed. Because like some of these actors never come back to conventions. They don't do any, you know, signs or anything like that. They want to be straight actors, so they move on to other projects and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. Watch the booth later. I was there waiting for, you know, where they said nothing. I'm like, well, what's going on? Where's Scott? Well, what happened is that I think I kept asking people, and then finally I heard from some guy. He's heard me ask a cast member. They're like,
hey, they said it's gonna be over there.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And whoever that guy was, thank you. I don't remember, like, I thanked at the time. But I went over there, and I was just kind of like roaming around that area. A lot of people were roaming there because they didn't know what was going on. Like, there wasn't an official line, there wasn't anything, you know. People were just kind of waiting there, right there, because there were spots where you can wait, you know, like kind of chill. But security didn't want you there. They're like, no, you can't be here because, you know, there's lines here, or you can't be here because you're blocking the area. That was pertaining to like where the special guests were going to rest. Like they just didn't want us in that section, and it's like, okay, there wasn't really a spot you could just chill. So people kind of looked awkward in that little area where it was going to take place, just kind of roaming around, you know. Finally, people saw Scott with the big box. He started handing stuff out, and I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna go get it. So I went, and yeah, it was a bracelet for it. So I got it, and he's like, okay, come back at, you know, this time, and we're gonna do your thing. Okay, so that's how I got that. Rewind a little bit before I say anything else. When I walked in, I knew I wasn't able to get JDF because I had stuff to do. So I'm like, you know what, I wonder if he's doing a photo op, you know, because people were doing photo op, and I'm like, I wonder if JDF's doing a photo op, how much is it gonna cost me? So I go, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I go and ask him, like, hey, how much is JDF doing a photo op? Like, those photo op people did it beautifully. I had a problem, and they fixed it. Like, whoever Scott hired, my opinion, they did a great job. Like, even when they had to refund me, like, they didn't cash, they didn't even do straight to card, which was great. Because if anybody knows, when you're at a convention, if they do a refund through card, it takes a few days, but you need it now, you know. So they cash, and it was just like, they did a great job. Like, for as a business person, like, they did a great job. Anyways, so I went, and they're like, oh, how can I help you with this time? And I'm like, okay, are you doing anything for JDF? And they're like, yeah. They helped me out. They're like, okay, we have for, you know, this time. And I'm like, are there any spots left? They're like, yes. So the problem with that is that you only get to meet him, say, hey, how's it going, quickly, and take a picture. That's the only problem. I think a lot of people don't like those photo booths. It's because you can't talk to them one-on-one. You can't hang out with them a little bit. You can't get any autographs. It's literally like, hey, nice to meet you. Click. All right, next person, you know. And that's pretty much how it is. A lot of people don't want it. The only thing is, like, great is like you get a professionally looking picture. So I was like, okay, I want, you know, for JDF, and they're like, sure, we still have some spots open. Sweet, cool. All right, so fast forward now to when I got my ticket from Scott. He's like, okay, here it is. Come back at this time. Well, the time that Scott said to come back, because remember, the time we were supposed to get our bracelets and when the signature was going to happen wasn't there. It got pushed up. Maybe because the actors got it there late or something, but it was just pushed up. Like, everything got pushed up, and I was like, oh man, like, my timing isn't going to work. That's the only reason I got JDF, because of that. So I'm like, oh man, like I'm interfering, you know? So I'm like, you know what? I got a bracelet. they're gonna, I got my bracelet. Even if I'm last, like, that'll be cool. So I went to JDF, time me, and they're like, at this time, the line for, Power Rangers was a little bit for me. Oh, no. It wasn't for me yet. So they're like, I'll come back at this time and we're going to start the line. So, okay, cool. I'm trying to remember what happened first. So I think I got my ticket and then I went back to get in line for JDF because I was like, oh, I could just get in line whenever. So I went back and I heard them saying, hey, we're here for JDF. You're in different groups. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3. And I was like, oh man, if you bought this ticket for this ticket, like each ticket had numbers, and they're like, if you're from this and this, and then my number was kind of the last one. It wasn't the last one. It was kind of the last one. There was like maybe, I want to say like a group from being the last group. So I thought like, okay, I'm gonna have time to run, get a line, get a signature, and then come back.
Yeah, that's a good plan. That'll work totally.
So, when Scott started doing the line, I went and I checked that. And that's when they say that. So I saw that the line was still forming over here. So I'm like, okay, let me run to get in line. So I got a line. I was there hanging with a few people. And I was like, okay, cool. They called the first group. Like, you could hear it. They're all loud. Like, hey, group number 1, line up now. So they're lining up the groups. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll be able to hear it from the distance that I was in for the Ninja Steel line. The line took a few minutes to start because the actors weren't showing up yet. And when they finally did, like, okay, the line started going a little bit. But it was slow. Like, I completely understand. People want to meet the actors. They want to say hello and everything. But in my mind, I'm like, you need to hurry up because I need to go get this, photo up. But, I mean, for a convention, it couldn't go faster. It just couldn't go faster because you don't want to tell the person in front of you, hey, hurry up. Because it's like, oh, it's their moment to meet their idol. So it's like you can't rush them. So I was like, okay. Line was moving. I still needed 2/3 of the way there. I hear over here, hey, group number 2. And I was like, oh man, like I still need 2/3 there. Line kept moving, Now remember, this whole time that I'm doing the line, like I'm talking to people around me, like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like you just start talking to people, that are on with you. But, so I was keeping an ear out and then talking to people here. And then the line was moving. And then finally, I was like, I want to say almost there. Group 3, and I was like, oh man, that's my group. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, if I go there, I might miss my line. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay here. I'm almost there, I needed maybe like 10, 20 people. So I was like, okay, I'll just go and I'll go to group 4, or something like that. I'm like, okay, I'll make the next group. That's totally fine. I'm like, nothing's wrong going to be about it. I don't think they'll argue with me about that one. So I'm like, okay, I'll stay in line. Well, what happened is that there was this person there that was taking forever to talk, like to every single person. I don't know if it's just noticed personally, or it was really taking like a very long time. And I'm like, man, it's taking a long time, like, because usually you get a picture and like sign it, hey, how's it going? Sign it, hey, how's it going? Sign it, how's it going? So they kind of realized like, oh, people were taking too long, so they're like, hey, they're only going to be able to sign one thing. Right when I almost got there, they're like, oh, we can only sign one thing. So I think people were asking too much for them to sign or something like that. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I was almost going up, and I'm telling you, this person was taking a long time. And then I heard like the last group being called, and I was like, oh man. So I look over, and I'm like, oh man, there was like a short line, and I told the people, I'm like, hey, is it cool if I go first? So pretty much I cut in front of like 2 people. I'm like, hey, is it cool if I go first? I need to go to photo op that I might miss with JDF. And they're like, yeah, totally fine. Like, we'll wait here. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I jumped in front of the line of them, and I'm not lying. This is what happened. Pretend this is my autograph. Like, oh, here, sign it, right? And I had the Ninja Steel toy. So I'm just go up to them, and I'm like, hi, how's it going? Can you sign these? Boom, okay. And then I rotated. Hi, can you sign this? Cool. Hi, can you sign this? I even did it so quick that I got to the person that was, because people started going around that person that was talking for too long. I even went around that person that was taking forever, I'm like, oh, can you like kind of tell the actor, like, just sign it? No, he was knowing what I wanted. And I'm like, and I went to that next one, and I didn't even have a chance to take pictures. I wanted to take one with Yoshi, but I'm like, oh, I don't have time. So I got all my stuff. Luckily, I had a bag, and then when I looked, the line was gone of JDF, and I'm like, oh man, I just ran for it. I just, like, I got all my stuff. Literally, my poster was flying. I didn't even have a chance to roll it up. My poster was flying, and I ran in there, and I kid you not, I run in, pull the door open, and I'm like, I'm here for JDF. Like, I just screamed it out loud. I'm like, I'm here for JDF. And then JD, you can see JDF coming out already, and they're like,
Hey, we got one more.
JDF was like,
Yeah, that's fine.
he did not have to do this. JDF did not have to, come back and be like, yeah, sure, get ready, get posed up and everything, get the camera ready. Like, when people say JDF is a really nice guy, like, moments like this, honestly, is why he's a nice guy. Literally, there was nobody there. JDF was leaving, and he did not have to wait. Because his time slot ended, his time slot for him, like, from him to be there, ended like a while ago, and he didn't have to be there. He could have just said, like, nah, like, time's up, whatever. Tell him to go get lined up in my booth. Because remember, the whole time JDF is here taking pictures in his booth, there's a big line of people waiting hours for him. So he could have just said that, but he's like, no, that's fine. So he went back, and I just, the thing pissed me off, though, was like, okay, if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you went there, like, you could go around this little zigzag thing to form a line, and then there's also passageways to cut through, So I was cutting through, and the guy's like, no, you need to go around. I'm like, you're wasting time. Like, I'm like, I literally went like what? So I had to do that stupid zigzag line thing, and there's a thing where you can put your stuff in. I just threw everything there. Like, my poster, just threw it on my backpack and everything. I'm like, whatever. I ran up to him. I'm like, thanks. I totally kind of forgot what I think I told him something around the lines like, thanks, like, I'm a big fan. Thank you for waiting. You don't have to. And then he's like, sure,
No problem.
and click. I'm like, thank you. I'm sorry for that. He's like, yeah, no problem. He walked away, and that was it. So I got the picture. I don't know if I think I did an email too. You can order these email and then like a digital, and then a copy. You get one of these automatically. So I got one, which is cool because then you can get a sign if you wanted to, but I didn't. Yeah, so I got picture, and oh man, that was like something. Like, I remember I'm a psychology major, and they say that emotions triggers memory. So usually the stuff you remember is something that's most emotional or like something that happened. They trigger emotions. Usually you don't remember. You remember if it's really happy or if it's something really negative, something that triggered an emotion. You remember those more because of the emotion. Well, it was it was a roller coaster, I'm telling you, because I was like panicking, trying to get autographs from these guys, and then JDF, and it was like I was doing 2 lines at both. So somehow I did it. Thank you to those people if you're watching this. Let me cut a line. I don't remember your guys' name. It was a few years ago. But thank you for those people letting me cut a line. Thank you for the actors that were just going really fast. And thank you for JDF for waiting and being able to take that picture with me. He didn't have to do that, but I cashed in him time. Honestly, if I wasn't to run it, I don't think I would have done it. He probably would have been walking out already. But I don't know. It was just like perfect timing. Everything went well. And I, took that picture. So that's my story. And then later on, I actually met this guy that I was in line with. So you know how when you're in lines, you kind of meet up and then you keep going and you meet up again. So we were talking to this one guy. Like the group I was in line with, we were talking to this one guy in his group. Every time we met up. Pretty much I talked to him and he's like, oh yeah, like right when I went up, this actor left. I'm like, what? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, like a few actors left. They signed a few of them posters. Like, they just signed the posters and then they left. And I was like, what? Are you serious? So you weren't even able to meet them? Like, no. And then he was like, and you know what? That guy that was still waiting there, he was still there when I went up. And I was like, are you serious? So that guy, like, stalling pretty much the whole line for everybody, he was still there. And I was like, oh, man, like, like, I understand you want to meet, but you got to be considerate of other people, waiting there. Like, if you know it's like a quick meet and greet signature thing, don't take 20 minutes per actor. Like, I know you really want to meet him. Big fan and everything. There's more people waiting in line behind you, like, that want to meet that guy or get a signature or anything. Like, I wasn't able to meet Yoshi because, the line was taking too long. Like, I wasn't able to take a picture because of other stuff, but maybe one day I'll take a picture with him. Yeah, it was a little story. Some details are vague, but the overall story, like, still remember it. But yeah, that's the time I took a picture with JDF. It's a little story. Let me know if you guys like that story. Give it a thumbs up if you like the story, you want to hear more story or anything has to do with conventions or stuff like that you see me maybe talk about, or maybe you have a story pertaining to a certain subject, put it down below in the comments, and I'll try to find a story in my mind and talk about it. And until next time.